G'day guys, Rob here and welcome back to the channel. Now before we get into today's tutorial, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell notification, and it really helps out the channel if you give this video a thumbs up. So give it a like and that will help to continue this channel to grow. So let's get into today's tutorial. So what I'm going to do today is show you how to make your own three-piece wheels. Now as you can see here, I've got a box with lots and lots of different wheels from different manufacturers, and I've got some wheels off standard model cars in here as well. Now these days we are pretty much spoilt for choice. There's a lot of different options for aftermarket wheels for your model cars, but today I'm going to show you how to make your own. Now, what I'm using today, these are actually some wheels from a Hot Wheels Elite Ferrari 458, and these are just a plastic wheel. They're made of plastic and quite common. The rears are a little bit wider. They have all these notches on here for the factory tires to fit on and not be hollow in the middle. So this is what I'm going to be using today, and I'm going to show you how I turned one of these wheels into this wheel, a three-piece wheel with an aluminium barrel. Now what we're going to use are some readily available parts, which you can see here. These actually come from Model Bow, from Uli or Yuli Nowak, I think his name is. I'll put a link in the video description where I buy these wheels from, and he basically sells sets like this which have an aluminium ring which you can get polished or leave unpolished. He sells the tires and he sells the resin inserts that go into the wheels as well. Now I bought these as a set, so it actually has a wider rear wheel to the front wheel, and you can also order these in different rim depths as well. So you can have some really deep dish ones or some really shallow ones. So that's basically what I used to make this three-piece wheel out of the Hot Wheels Elite wheel. So I'm going to show you how I did this. It's not difficult at all, but what we're going to start with, so we're pretty much going to be using the aluminium wheel barrel and the tires for this example, and the centers I'm using are these Rotiform RMBs, I think they are. I have to check his website, but as you can see, these wheels have a studded ring around the outside. So I'm going to cut the center of these wheels out so that I can use the outer studded ring. Hopefully if that camera's focusing. And then we're going to cut up and modify this Hot Wheels Elite rim to basically create this wheel, as you see here. Now this method will pretty much work on any standard wheel. It doesn't matter whether it's a spoked wheel or a mesh wheel. The theory is basically the same, and pretty much anything will work. So what we're going to do first is we're going to mark out the overall diameter of this wheel. So what we want to do is obviously cut the center out of this Hot Wheels Elite wheel, and what we're going to do here is use the center out of this aluminium ring because that fits in there snugly. So we're going to use this basically as a template. So what we're going to do is I often use a little bit of blue tack, this rubbery that you stick things to your fridge or your walls, posters. I'm sure every country's got this blue tack. And what I'm going to do is stick a little bit of blue tack behind the resin center, and then I'm actually going to press that onto the Hot Wheels Elite ring, as you can see there. Now what I want to do to make sure it's even all the way around, I'm just going to use my little steel rule, and I'm basically going to measure all the way around just to make sure it's even. And the blue tack actually holds the resin part in place quite firmly, and then I'll just measure it and move it if I have to all the way around to get the right spacing. So in this particular case, it's just under 3 millimeters all the way around. So continue to just check that. 3 millimeters all the way around, which is good. And then I'm just going to use a marker, and then I'm just going to mark the spokes on the Hot Wheels Elite rim underneath, and this is going to give me my cut lines for that wheel. So you want to make sure that you measure it very accurately, because you don't want the center stem of the wheel to be offset. You want that to be nice and centered. Okay, we'll get the lid on that. All right, so if we remove the center, which removes easily, that's why I use the blue tack, that can just be pulled off the back of the wheel, like so. And now you can see my black marks around the rim of the spokes. So that's where I'm going to actually cut the centers out of these wheels. Now I'm going to use the Dremel for that because it is a bit easier. You could maybe use an X-Acto saw and basically saw the center out, but honestly the Dremel is the quickest and the best option for cutting the center of the wheel out. So that's part one of determining the size of the part of the wheel that you're going to use. So that's part one. And part two is actually using these resin centers. So as I said, what we want to do, let the camera focus, is keep the outer ring here, because this is what has all the studs in it, which is going to give us the look of a three-piece wheel. And basically what I'm going to do is cut the center out of this wheel. So basically I'm going to cut through the spokes here, like so. That way I'm just left with an outer ring, if we can focus. And then I'm again going to use the Dremel with a sanding drum just to smooth out the inside, what's left of those spokes, and then we will marry these two parts together. So I'll get the Dremel together now, and then we'll move on to stage two. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to be using the Dremel here. So this is my little handheld extension, and I'm just basically using a little cut-off wheel. Now these usually come a lot bigger than this, but after you grind through die cast a little bit, they do reduce in size, and rather than throw these small ones out in the rubbish bin, I keep these for when I have to do little cuts. So I'm basically going to use this and cut out the spokes. Now I'm going to do this from the back side, so if you need to, you can mark a line on the edge, but we'll cut this first section out as we go. Now watch your fingers when you do this. And I don't want to cut it too close to what I want to finish with, because you can sand that out. Okay, so you can see there I've basically just cut the center of that out, so we're throwing that away, we don't need that bit. And now I'm going to come back with a sanding drum attachment for the Dremel as well, and I can put this on the up through the inside, and I can just sand off those little remaining lugs that you can see here and get a consistent ring. Now you could do this with sandpaper as well, but because these are made out of resin, they can be a bit brittle, and if you try and use a file or sandpaper back and forward, you may snap this part. So that's why I find the best solution for this type of work is using a Dremel, and you're letting the speed of the Dremel do all the work rather than putting a lot of pressure on the part. So what we'll do here, we'll just change this head. So we'll take the cutting disc out and we'll put the sanding drum in. And now we'll basically sand out the inside of these spokes. Now obviously I've done that quite quickly, and I want to take a little bit more out, but it's a bit hard to do that while I'm trying to show you on camera. But as you can see there, that's got it pretty close. I've still got to take a little bit more out of some sections, so I will do that and clean that up in a minute or off camera. But that basically gives you the idea how to do it. So just gently hold the resin part, put the sanding disc on the inside, and basically just sand it that way while the Dremel is running. So that will basically take care of the outer ring section. Now I'll actually just put the other cutting disc back in here, and what we will do is cut the spokes out of the center of this Hot Wheels Elite wheel. So as you will have seen, I put a black pen mark all the way around, so I don't want to cut it right on that line, just in case the cutter moves a little bit and cuts a little bit too much off. I don't want to ruin the wheel, so it's always better to cut away from the line, and then you can sand some back until you get a nice snug fit. So always better, you can always take a little bit more off, but you can never add more on. So that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so you've just got to be a little bit careful with these. Sometimes they are made out of plastic, and when you cut that plastic with the Dremel, it does get very hot and can burn your fingers. So I've drilled most of the way, or cut most of the way through that. I just want to get rid of some of that melted plastic, and I do have to cut a little bit deeper to free the center spokes from their outer rim. So I'll just cut a bit deeper now. And there we go, I saw that free itself, and then we can just remove that center part out of the wheel. Now those bits of burnt plastic just come apart pretty easily, and that's what we're left with. So you can basically see that we have cut the center out of the original Hot Wheels outer barrel, so that is going in the rubbish bin as well. And now you start to get the idea of how we are making our own three-piece wheels, as you can see here. So this is the process to make that. Now what we need to do is just to trim this a little bit. So what we will do, we'll just put the resin studded ring back into the wheels, and you'll be able to see straight away that this doesn't quite fit yet, and that's because I left I left the cuts a little bit oversized. Just as I said, you can always take more off, but you can't add more on there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use a sanding block with a little bit of 180 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to sand a little bit off each spoke, because I know I basically cut them all on the same line. So I just have to basically just remove a bit of material off the end of each spoke until it fits into the rim. So we're really very close there. So I don't sand too much off, just a little bit, and then I'll just go back around the 5 spokes. And I'm only removing fractions of a millimeter, really not taking too much off. You may have to sand more if you cut further away from the line, but that is basically how you're going to make it fit. You're just going to continue to sand that until it fits in there. So not quite. It's just a normal process with modifying. It's just going backwards and forwards. It's like when I do all my custom wide bodies and I apply putty, you have to sand, check it, sand, check it, sand, check it. It's just the way it goes. So yeah, as I said, just continue just to sand about the same amount off each side so that you know that the wheel is still going to be centered. And we're just about there again, a little bit more sanding required. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video, this will work with any style of wheel. I've actually done this method with a mesh style wheel before, so I'll show you the car I did that on towards the end of the video. But it doesn't really matter what style of wheel or what model it comes on. This method will pretty much work all of the time. And there we go, that's just enough now for it to sit inside that aluminium wheelbarrow. So there's a tiny bit of movement, but not much. So you want to have that pretty snug. Now, as you can see, there's a little bit of difference between this pre-painted one and this one. I mean, this looks okay, but it depends on the wheel and the thickness of the spokes. So you can see these Hot Wheels Elite spokes are actually quite thick this way. Now, if you want that rim to sit down further over the aluminium ring, we can just file some off the inside edge. So again, we'll just hold that inside in position, flip the wheel over, and then use the marker again and mark the inside edge of the spokes on the wheel like so. So that way you know where basically the inside edge of the resin ring is, as you can see there. So you can see my black marker lines. Now you can simply just use a jeweler's file for that one. So I've got some files of different sizes. There's just a little flat jeweler's file there, which is rectangular shape, but it's square on the sides. And what you can basically do is just file some of that inside, or the outside edge I should say, file that down so it fits over the aluminium ring better. So what we'll do, we'll just put this on my block here. I just basically use my finger as a bit of a guide for the file and just file that down. Now you just have to make sure that you get the same amount filed down off each spoke, but that's not too hard. Now you can, hopefully the camera will pick this one up, so you can see I'm actually filing a notch out of the inside or the outside edge of each spoke, and that will allow basically allow the center to sit further down over that resin ring on the outside. So I'll just run around all spokes here and do that. I can show you on the finished one in a moment, but I just want to show you how I do this. Got a spoke to go. And this will depend whether you need to do this or not on some types of wheels. I've got some other wheels that I've done this on that are very thin and you just don't need to do this step. But just giving you the option to show you if you need to reset the center of the rim in further. This is how I do it. Okay, so that is all the outer edges just rebaited out with the file, and then when the center goes in there, the actual rim face is now further in. Now you could reduce that more and file some more out of there. I did that on this particular rim. So you can actually see here how much I did file out, nearly half the thickness of the spoke on this finished one. And you can see there, that's nice and smooth around the inside barrel because I wasn't doing that one on camera. But when the rim center sits back in there, it actually gives me more dish because the center is further in. And that's really basically all it takes to turn a standard wheel off a model car into a three-piece wheel. Obviously these have been repainted just with some Tamiya gold spray, not quite as yellowy gold as those other ones, but that is basically how you make a three-piece wheel. So you might be like me and have a ton of these factory wheels lying around and you think, I'm never going to use those on anything. Well, you can use those up now and create your own set of custom wheels. Okay, so before we wrap this video up, I just wanted to show you this example as well. Now this is my Look Smart Ferrari 288 GTO, and this came with horribly undersized small wheels on it. So I made these exact wheels on this model car, exactly the same process as I showed you here with these ones. So I basically just used a challenge style wheel from a Hot Wheels Elite model, and I did exactly the same thing on this wheel as I did with these ones. So I basically used the polish wheel, cut out the resin outer ring like so, and then I just basically used the challenge center and I cut that out and sanded it until it fit, and then I glued it into the resin wheel ring, as you can see here. So these wheels were made exactly the same way as I just showed you how to make these three-piece wheels using a factory model car wheel and some parts from Model Bow like the chrome ring and the resin insert. So I hope that was entertaining for you guys. I hope I taught you another trick of how to make something unique. As I say, there's plenty of manufacturers of aftermarket model wheels now, but if you want to make yourself something out of some spare parts, something that no one else has got, and I think these Ferrari 458 wheels look really good as a three-piece wheel, then I hope this tutorial helps you out. So as I said at the start of the video, if you're not subscribed already, please do. Don't forget to hit that bell notification and definitely give the video a thumbs up. Hit that like button if you like it. I'll have plenty more tutorials this year for you guys, but hopefully this is a good one and this will help you out. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Get modding. You'll enjoy it as much as I do. It's a lifestyle. But until the next tutorial video, thanks for watching Rob's Model Cars.